Live from the Coachella Valley. Time for another hour of the desert scene. Art exhibitions to modernism. Music festivals to live theater. Big screen, little screen, and very little screen. This is the Culture Corner with Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
And welcome to the Culture Corner. Once again, we've got some guests and a lot of entertainment news, some trivia and all kinds of stuff going on. What's up, Brayan?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Pretty productive week this week so far. How are you doing?
Good. You know, and I'm just happy that it's May and it's getting warmer and more people are getting vaccinated. And I feel like we're kind of on the upswing. Upswing sounds better.
Momentum towards the up.
Yeah, yes. Okay. So, what do you want to start? We got a lot of news.
We got a lot of things to talk about, but first, I have to report the very sad and tragic passing of Olympia Dukakis on May 1st, which was this week. And oh boy, she's a legend. She's one of those people.
She was like 91, something like that?
89.
89.
89. She has done more than 130 stage productions.
Wow.
More than 60 movies, and starred in about 50 television productions. And she won an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for her performance in Moonstruck as Cher's mother.
She was fabulous.
She really was. And what I like about that performance was that she's always been able to play like wise characters who are also really fun and approachable, because every time I see movies with like motherly or grandmotherly figures, a lot of times they're either so like spiteful and mean, or they're very pious. But in this case, Olympia Dukakis managed to bring out like a character that is wise, but always funny. There was always some humor. There's always a snap to her. And I loved her in Moonstruck probably the most of all her movies. I think that's my favorite movies of hers. But I think for me, I also really loved her in Steel Magnolias.
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking, absolutely.
And with Steel Magnolias, she played the gossipy Claire Bletcher. And I remember that movie is... you know what I like about Steel Magnolias? It's one of those stories that it's just a beautiful story of all these women who are intergenerational, older, younger, forming a bond together. And I love the fact that in the movie you feel the bond even if they're not always on screen together. Like when the characters have their own lives and their own dilemmas. And somehow that movie has multiple storylines, but it doesn't feel crammed.
No. I mean, it was a great story, and you see all the women. You're right, their friendships, and then they fight, and then they squabble, and they different things happen, and there's tragedy, and well done movie, really. And
I think Olympia Dukakis is one of the most celebrated figures in that movie. And I remember that famous scene where Sally Field is spoiler alert for an older movie that you should have seen by now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go see it. But it's like, so there's a scene where something bad happens and Sally Field is crying about it, and she's really hurt, and she's like, why me? I just need to hit something. And Olympia Dukakis grabs Shirley MacLaine.
Hit her,
and that's like
that was funny. Yes, that was great.
And that's just one of those legendary, I would almost say like legendary scenes, because it's perfect. Like, it's perfect timing, and just she's the only person that could have sold that moment. And every time, and I feel bad saying this, but every time I see a production of Steel Magnolias,
you think about her.
I think about her, and I think about the other actresses. And I feel bad saying that, because they're always so... Every production I've seen of it, it's wonderful. Wonderful cast every time, but I feel
it's hard to beat the original,
It's really hard to beat.
So well cast. Everybody was so great in that.
And did you know that originally, when that movie was being first purchased, because it was a play and then it was purchased as a movie, that Bette Davis actually wanted to have that role of the Shirley MacLaine role as Weezer, and that Katharine Hepburn was going to get the Olympia Dukakis role, and Elizabeth Taylor was going to get the Dolly Parton role. So they wanted all these older actresses, but when they got down to it, I think Bette Davis ultimately changed her mind. And looking back at it, I'm like, those three are great actresses.
But that wouldn't have worked with that story, no.
Certainly not. And for you, like, other than... what is your favorite Olympia Dukakis moment, like, or performance in general?
Well, isn't there's one, I'm trying to remember the exact scene in Moonstruck, where she shares, and I think Olympia Dukakis, she says, "Did somebody die? Who died?" Or she wakes her up in the middle of the night, "Who died?" You know, she was just so good in that. Yeah, I mean, those two stand out. Yeah, those two movies, absolutely.
And then I also remember her very vividly in the Tales of the City, the Tales of the City miniseries, because those are
Didn't see that.
So Tales of the City basically is about this young woman who moves to San Francisco and all her adventures with her friends, and it's very LGBT centric, and she's very famous for playing a trans woman in this part.
Good for her.
And at the time, Olympia Dukakis, you know, funny enough, I know that there's a discussion about we should give trans women a priority to play trans characters, but when the miniseries was brought back for Netflix, a lot of like trans people went up to me and said, you know, there's one exception, and it's Olympia Dukakis.
They were fine with that.
Yeah, because like she played her very dignified, and the fact that I think Olympia Dukakis didn't go in there like a lot of these actors saying, "I'm a man in a dress," or "I'm gonna win an Oscar because of this." I think she said, "This is a character. She's a woman. She's the landlady. She's just happens to be a trans woman navigating through that."
Right.
And so it was more progressive than it should have been. And so I think it helps that Olympia Dukakis is just a naturally likable person. I think that even if you've never seen her in an interview, you see her in a movie and you're like, that's a woman that's actually really likable, or that's someone that's really likable, which, you know, for women, it's harder to come across as likable in movies because, you know, because it's complicated. I don't know how to put it, but without saying the S word, but
I think you're right. I think it just came through. Her whole aura was just somebody you'd love to go sit down and have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine with and just hang out. Yeah.
And she was nominated for an Emmy for more Tales of the City when she played Anna Mardigo. I always forget how to say her last name on that show, but like it was a good performance. So I always recommend, if you want to see if you want to see some performances, Moonstruck and Steel Magnolias, and in the case and Tales of the City, I would say those are her best performances. There was a documentary that recently came out about her called Olympia, which came out in 2018, but now it's reached a wider audience this year.
I'd like to see that because I don't know anything about her younger life, about when she first started and her state. You know, only know her from these, you know, later movies.
And in her younger life, she was mostly a stage actress. Like she mostly did off-Broadway productions. I don't know why I say off-Broadway productions. She did Long Day's Journey into the Night. She also did a production of Our Town. And so she was mostly a stage actress, and I think she was one of those people that when she got famous, it was mostly because at that point somebody cut on that maybe she could act in movies, and she was one of those lucky actresses where in her older age she got some good parts. She got some good parts, and I think she embraced them pretty well. Another thing that's really beloved about Olympia Dukakis is that she advocated a lot for women's rights and LGBT rights.
Good for her.
And one of the things she said was that she was able to play like a trans woman on television, but she also played a butch lesbian in a movie called Cloud Burst, and she's always been unafraid to take on riskier parts because I know that nowadays, like, the conversation is about, like, you know, LGBT people should definitely try to get more opportunities, but I think that at the time when they weren't given those opportunities, actors oftentimes saw playing a gay character or a trans character as the mark of death.
Too risky in a career.
Too risky, or unless they were going to win an Oscar, but usually if they didn't win an Oscar, it'd be the mark of death, like Dirk Brigade in Victim. That was the end of his career in England. But in the case of Olympia Dukakis, I think she embraced these roles because she said, you know what, I want to humanize these people. And so I appreciate her for doing that, and I think that she's one of those actresses that, I'm going to be honest, I don't think she gets enough recognition.
I think you're probably right. I think she really had a pretty amazing career, and you know, bravo, Olympia. Well done.
Bravo.
Well done.
Well done. But I was going to say, we forgot to actually update our audience, and I think a lot of you have heard, but Lady Gaga's dogs, the situation was that last week, I'm going to apologize for neglecting to mention it last week, but 5 people were arrested in connection to Lady Gaga's dogs being kidnapped, and one of them was actually the woman that originally called in the ransom. That when Lady Gaga put out a ransom, a reward, the woman who called in about the dogs, she's actually one of the 5 people arrested. And it's funny because I remember on that episode you had said something, oh, I hope she's not the one. And I was and I was like, oh, Bonnie, come on. And then it turns out you were right. I was like,
you always have to wonder about that. I watch a lot of Dateline, so
So it's one of those things where I underestimated you in this case, Bonnie. But
my dark doom and gloom take on things. Okay,
the cynicism won this time. I was gonna say that, but in the case of Lady Gaga's dogs, like it actually turns out that they weren't targeted because of the owner. Specifically, they were
the type of dog
because they were expensive. And I gotta say, I'm not surprised by these developments, and I'm glad that the man that got shot, he is getting justice.
Okay, good. And he's okay, right?
He's doing better, and I think Lady Gaga paid for his bills and all that. Because the interesting thing is that recently there was another celebrity situation where a celebrity's assistant got sick, and the celebrity Kylie Jenner actually went out of her way, didn't actually pay for the medical bills. In fact, she posted
I remember that
GoFundMe.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of interesting that in this whole development that Lady Gaga proves that she is generous and unfortunately a much more kinder person, compassionate person than a lot of celebrities, especially since one was a dog walker and the other one was a makeup person. I imagine that in the case of Kylie Jenner, you would want to make sure your makeup artist was financially stable. It doesn't make sense to me.
And she's got a pile of money. I mean, my God, it's not like she would have noticed missing anything.
That's true. And for me, it's I think even in some ways she makes more money than Lady Gaga. I almost want to assume she does because, believe it or not, people would assume just because you have a singing career that somehow you make more money. That's not necessarily true.
Well, one of those girls is a billionaire. I don't. Is it Kylie? One of them. She has a makeup line, and she's like.
I think it
had $1 billion. I think might be her.
I think it is Kylie Jenner because she has her own business and everything.
And that it takes a lot of nerve to not help pay the medical expenses of a makeup artist when you got that kind of money. I mean, that's just. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you, and I think for me, in the case of the dog walker with Lady Gaga, it's it was obvious she paid for it, and she didn't hesitate.
I don't think she thought twice. Yeah, she just did it.
But in the case of the makeup artist, where it's a medical situation, I'm like, come on, you could have paid for that. And the fact is that I think the world would have looked down on Lady Gaga really harshly if she didn't pay for the bills because, I mean, he was a victim of a horrible attack, especially considering what happened.
Yeah, it was not his fault. And you know what? Here's the thing about that. No matter what level of money you have, I have found when you give, it's karma. It comes back to you eventually. No matter how much you have and even if it's a small amount, being generous is a good thing.
No, I agree with that. And even if you have an extra dollar, and someone asks for it, it's always good to give it because guess what? That always comes back in some positive way. But
absolutely.
Hey, stay tuned. We're going to discuss the most disappointing television finales of all time.
I love it.
Stay tuned.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Here are Bonnie and Brayan.
Hey, in this segment, we're going to talk about the most disappointing television finales of all time. And so let's see what our personal choices would be. In your case, Bonnie, what would be a television finale that, off the top of your head, that was disappointing when you saw it?
That is really hard. Because, I haven't watched that, television sitcoms or that kind of thing for many years. So mine would be a long time ago. Well, yeah, and I never really watched it, to be honest with you, or hardly ever. But I know some people were disappointed with the way Seinfeld ended.
I often hear that up a lot because, like, when I watch Seinfeld, the finale where they all go...
Or in jail or something.
All in jail. And a lot of people felt it was really cynical and mean. And looking back at it, I did look up reviews, like, guesses, right? And a lot of people at the time kind of misunderstood Seinfeld because when you go back and watch the show, it's pretty cynical and like these characters are not nice people. I think now looking back at it, it's like, okay, like those actually were mean people and the finale makes sense. But I have heard of people who I saw an article that said, will Elaine and Jerry get together? And I'm almost like, oh, this poor dear didn't actually watch the show they were looking at. And when I look at, for me personally, like Seinfeld at first was a little disappointing, but then I kind of got over it and I thought about it. I wouldn't say it's one of the greatest finales of all time, but because for me, some of the greatest finales of all time would be like, in my opinion, like the Twin Peaks, the season 3 finale, and Sex and the City, which had a great finale, in my opinion.
I liked Cheers.
Cheers had a great finale.
And
Mary Tyler Moore.
MASH.
Oh,
and Mary Tyler Moore. Yeah.
MASH and Mary Tyler Moore.
Those were all good.
When I look back at finales that were great, I always imagine sitcoms, for some reason, they tend to nail it more than dramas, because a lot of cases, dramas, they fall apart by the end because they're much more serious and all that. Like, I thought the Desperate Housewives finale had the potential to be great.
Didn't see that.
But it was okay. Like, it was fine. But
let's talk about what you got on your list there of the worst ones.
So on the survey, on onbuy.com, which is a UK survey / like shop, so it's like it's a shopping center, but it's also, they do surveys, and so they found out that 27 when people were allowed to do multiple series, when they were able to, it turns out 27.3% of viewers said Lost had the most disappointing.
I never watched any of
finale.
that, so I have no idea.
And with Game of Thrones coming second, as voted by 25% of respondents, and then How I Met Your Mother was 17%, and then Sherlock Holmes, Prison Break, and Dexter were among the many. And then when it turns out, when they were asked to name one without naming multiple, Game of Thrones came up the most. So they did 2 surveys, one where they were allowed to name only one, and Game of Thrones came out number 1 each time. But when they were allowed to do multiples, it seems that Lost kept showing up in everyone. Even if they don't mention Game of Thrones, Lost got mentioned more. And so I actually would say that that's not inaccurate. I would say that when I saw Lost, the finale to me, it was just...
So did they all get rescued? I mean, I never watched any of it, so I don't know.
So, like, in the show itself, like, at that point, will they get rescued had stopped being, like, a question by that point.
Yeah.
Because they did time travel, and they did a lot of, like, different dimensions and
so it was kind of out of the question.
It was out of the question, and, like... And the finale, the conclusion that the series got to was so ill-rewarding that I was blown away by the fact that this is the answer you're going to give people. Like, it's, especially since 6 seasons of mystery and, like, what's in the island, what's going on with the island, why are the characters this way, what's the secret, why are these characters at this moment, and then disappointing. And same with Game of Thrones. All these mysteries were given rushed conclusions, and Game of Thrones, they basically took what could have been 3 seasons of story and they put them into 6 one-hour episodes. And I thought, you know what, like, I think it's more disappointing when a show claims to have all these mysteries and answers and then nothing. In the case of Game of Thrones, they turned one of the most beloved heroes in all of television, and she became one of the villains towards the end, and a lot of people were mad because they felt not only was it, in their opinion, just bad writing, they also said, you know, it's a sexist trope when a woman doesn't get with a man and then she becomes evil. Like, it's funny how this character saves all these people and frees slaves, and at the end, because she doesn't get a man,
all of a sudden she's no good.
She kills all these people. and then when I look back at it, like How I Met Your Mother, I remember I saw that, and when the conclusion they went for the mother, because we already had met the mother at the beginning of season 9, and she was such a likable character, and what they do to her at the end, I'm like, you know, you could have come up with something better. That to me felt like a waste of time. And other finales listed on Yardbreaker, for example, include Roseanne's finale. the original Roseanne finale.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
The original Roseanne finale, it turns out... Are you going to watch Roseanne?
I think I saw it once or twice way back when, but that's about it.
The original Roseanne finale, it turns out the whole series was a book.
Okay.
And so, like, a lot of people were mad because, like, she went out of her way to say, okay, all that happened in the book, in the series didn't happen. And then the new Roseanne, when it came back, they made that into a joke. So I was like...
Well, she shot herself in the foot in any way, so, we don't really care, to be honest. She was just, what a moron. Yeah.
And another thing was, like, Will and Grace, the two characters don't get along anymore at the end, so I'm like, okay, well, thanks for that. But those are some really noteworthy bad series finales, in my opinion. And
one of the best was Cheers. I love Cheers.
Cheers.
It was very well done.
If you make a TV show, if your finale is half as good as Cheers, that's a good sign.
Yeah. All right, we're going to come back with Mr. Michael Holmes, owner of the Purple Room. We're so excited to talk to him in just a bit on the Culture Corner.
The curtain rises on local and regional arts and entertainment. From music to theater, films to fine art, it's the Culture Corner. Get connected. Call 760-544-TALK. That's 760-544-8255. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
And we're back on the Culture Corner. Now we are joined by a really talented super guy who's brought so much great entertainment to the Valley, Mr. Michael Holmes, who is the owner of the Purple Room. Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm great, Bonnie. How are you?
Good. So, it's been a tough year, more than a year, for entertainers and local venues. So, yeah. So tell us I know there's a movement, Save Live Music, Help the Purple Room Reopen, because people are want to see you guys reopen, absolutely, because you bring so much great stuff to town, and people are having a hard time. So tell us about this program and how people can help.
Well, it's a wonderful thing. I was talking with my friend Sue Cameron, the author and writer and journalist, and I was telling her how I didn't know how I was going to do it. I've already borrowed $250,000, in addition to what I already owed, just to pay the bills while we were closed. And there are some government programs occurring, but like the PPP loans and whatnot, they just really did not help us because we weren't able to be open on any level. Mm-hmm. So, it's been an average of about $20,000 a month,
of expenses.
Just closed.
Yeah.
And now we're on 14 months, so it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hopefully some things will open up, and these incredibly generous and kind, caring people have been donating to this GoFundMe account. Mm-hmm. It's, Save the Purple Room, Save Live Music on GoFundMe, and it's been pretty amazing.
And now because in the Purple Room, it's if you're listening, you haven't been to the Purple Room, you've missed out. As soon as they reopen, you got to check it out. But you don't have an outside, you don't have like a patio area, and it's an intimate room, so you're not really in a position where you could do like 50% capacity or something like that, correct?
Well, our last night open, we did 50% capacity, but with social distancing and everything and no bar, we ended up at 34 people. Mm. Yeah. Which, it's hard to keep the doors open on 34 people. Plus, in addition, and I'm not the only one, but we do bring in a lot of entertainers from all over the country. Mm-hmm. And it has to be a financially viable option for them.
Sure.
Everybody's biting at the bit to perform, but you can't fly in from New York for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is getting us set up so that a lot of different things. There are a lot of expenses in opening. There are a lot of contract expenses. With entertainers, you have to put deposits down, etc.
Right.
And this GoFundMe is really making an enormous difference in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm looking, I went online, and what I saw, the latest thing I saw was, so the goal is 240,000, and it looks like it's 141,485, and might be more than that, because that was earlier today, or yesterday. So you're getting there, but not. Now, I know it's a changing thing. It changes all the time. But do you have a feeling at all for when, here in the Valley, venues like yours might completely reopen? I know you don't know for sure. Nobody knows for sure, but...
Nobody knows. But what we're looking at is to open Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
I have to, book the you don't want to book entertainers when you can't. They're saying June 15th, but what if it isn't June 15th? Kind of thing.
Right.
So we thought Labor Day would be a little safer to start bringing everybody in and get going and try and keep the lights on.
Yeah. Now, are you hearing from, because I know there's some performers that you've booked multiple times, big names from out of town. Are you hearing from some of them saying, boy, gosh, we'd love to come back, but they're trying to deal with all this big mess too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they haven't worked in 14 months either.
Yeah.
Everybody's ready. So I'm actually booking the fall season. Everything is tentative. Everybody's very cool about it. We all know that we just have to ride the wave and see what happens.
Yeah.
But I've got Marilyn May and Hampton Calloway, Diane Shore, Brandon and James, and a lot of tentative. Jane Monheit.
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
Regulars that come in here, Scott Bruce, Sam Harris, Nikki Harris. Do you know Nikki Harris?
I don't. No.
Oh, my God. You would just love her. So she was the lead. So they call them backup singers. I say support singers. For Madonna for years.
Okay.
But this beautiful woman has one of the most amazing, thrilling voices I've ever heard.
Okay.
And she's now branched out into her solo act, and it's jazz.
Mm-hmm. And you've had her before, haven't you? Booked her before?
I have.
Yeah.
And she's just blown me away. So I'm in conversations with her.
Okay.
So we're lining up a lot of stars.
Good.
We're all just hoping.
Fingers crossed.
It'll work.
Yeah. So would you say in your career, Michael, I know you've been in this business a long time, is this
old.
Is this pandemic one of the biggest challenges you've ever faced professionally?
Well, as you know, life as an entertainer is not as easy as it might seem.
Right.
For years I toured and, did all that. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. Mm-hmm. In the past, it's like, oh, I didn't get the gig. There are no gigs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy. As a matter of fact, a lot of the clubs have closed.
Yeah.
Good.
Some of them aren't coming back. That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I'm not one to ask for help. I tend to, lead the call to help others. Mm-hmm. But we're just in a unique position.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, just paying and paying and paying. And Birdland in New York, the Catalina Jazz Club in L.A., we've all talked, and they also did GoFundMes because, 14 months without any income and about $20,000 a month going out is a lot of money.
That's that's a lot of money. I have to ask you this, Michael, just from a personal standpoint, and I've asked this of a number of performers in particular that I've known. How have you, as a person, as a human being, as well as performer, stayed sane or halfway sane during this last 14 months? Because it's been challenging. What have you done to kind of keep yourself together mentally?
Well, interesting because I was having a conversation with another friend of mine who's an entertainer about just how fluid time has been because I'm used to working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And so I just move a big pile of stuff from over here, and then I take it to the other side of the room and look at it for a while, and then move it back. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
But it's really been surreal, and it's been depressing.
Yeah,
been challenging. I'm not one generally to be depressed, but boy, this one,
it's hard.
There were days where it was just hard to get out of bed.
Yeah. And now, do you think? Do you? I know you're a wonderful performer. You do the Judy show, and do you write any of your own material or write songs? I don't know that about you.
Write songs? I don't particularly write songs. I do write lyrics.
Okay. So
kind of rewrite songs, especially in comedic mode.
Okay.
I've done a lot of that with Darcy Daniels.
We love Darcy, lovers, my soul sister. So I was just wondering, I'm guessing that a lot of creative people, once this is all over, and hopefully it'll be soon, there's going to be some material that's come out of this, out of this experience.
Yeah. Well, they say comedy is pain plus time.
Yes.
Oh, this is just food for fodder. We're going to get through it.
Yeah.
And I've gained so much weight. I said I'm going to start doing the Toady Field show.
Now, just so people are listening, how can they help? What do they go to online? How could they help donate?
Well, you can go to our website, purpleroompalmsprings.com.
Okay.
There's a link there. And by the way, there are some amazing videos that a lot of the stars have recorded, and we put them together, and we're putting more up all the time. The GoFundMe page is Save Live Music, Help Purple Room Reopen. You can go to GoFundMe.com, and in the search, just type Purple Room.
Okay.
I could give you the address, but it's an enormously long...
no, that's okay. I think so go to purpleroompalmsprings.com, go to the GoFundMe page, Save Live Music, Help Purple Room Reopen. Now, have you been surprised at all about how generous people have been, about how many people have stepped up?
Well, I'm speechless. I really am. I mean, I've been beside myself. I didn't want to do it, and then they convinced me to do it, and we added... they put in the amount, the goal, and they said, well, this is how much you've spent already this year that you had to go in debt for. It's $250,000. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. Why would anybody give to that? And they have.
Yeah.
People have. It's been unreal. And I'm in tears half the time when I see this. And
Well, Michael, I'm not surprised because you have, first of all, it's a wonderful place. You bring so much entertainment, but you do give back a lot. I mean, I was part of your Christmas toy drive with Darcy and wrapping the presents. I mean, you guys worked really hard for that. That was huge and gave Christmas to so many kids who might not otherwise have it. So, what goes around comes around. You've been really giving and generous to a lot of people, and so people are stepping up to help you. So I'm not surprised at all.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet.
I mean, but it's the truth. It really is the truth. Well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed, big time, for Labor Day weekend, and I'm gonna go on and donate either later today or tomorrow. But Purple, and so when if all goes well, and Labor Day is the weekend's the time. When's the next Judy show we can look forward to?
Well, it would be Labor Day weekend, Sunday.
Okay.
Sunday of Labor Day. Well, and it might be the Toady Field show. You never know.
Well, you know what? Even if it was, we'd have to pad you up a little bit. I'm sure you do a great job. I still haven't seen the Judy show. I'm embarrassed to say I'm going to see it.
I'm hanging up now.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. Listen, please help out. PurpleRoomPalmSprings.com, Save Live Music, Help Purple Room, GoFundMe page. This is a wonderful venue, and Michael brings so much great entertainment. Is such a great guy. I want to help you out. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Michael, for being here. I know it's all going to work out. We're going to get you reopened and back up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
All right. You take care. Hang in there. We're rooting for you.
Thank you, dear.
All right. Okay. We'll be back with much more on the Culture Corner in just a moment.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallon and Brayan Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Live from the desert cities of Southern California, here's Brayan and Bonnie.
Now, Steven Soderbergh is kind of did this really wonderful interview with the Los Angeles Times. I mean, I wouldn't say wonderful, but sort of like insightful into the problems and into the criticisms that the Academy Awards this year got. I know that last week we talked about it
quite a bit
for almost a whole hour, but you know what? I just had to bring up this interview because he had mentioned a couple things. He had addressed a few things, and some of them I'm not surprised by some of his answers. So
let's hear it.
So when he was asked, basically, why did they switch up the categories towards the end? Mm-hmm. Because that's the most controversial decision of the night, which is why did you end with Best Actor instead of Best Picture? Mm-hmm. He had said that in his conclusion that actor speeches tend to be more dramatic than producer speeches. And so he thought it'd be fun to mix it up, especially if people didn't know that was coming. And so that was always, according to him, always part of the plan, even before the nominations. And then he mentioned that there was even a possibility that if Chadwick Boseman had won, his widow would come and speak on his behalf, and that afterwards they would stick to that. Mm-hmm. And so there was this discussion. He didn't entirely say it, but there was this sort of thing where when the nominations came that it sort of cemented that decision, because it's like, well, if Boseman might win, then that'd be a nice way to end the night. And for me, I will say this. I think he isn't wrong that actor speeches are more dramatic than producer speeches. It's just that at the end of the night, when the Best Picture winner is announced, the producers tend to be very emotional, and it's just a nice, like, low-key way of ending the night.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I agree with you. He's not wrong in this assessment of the speeches, but I don't think that was a reason enough to switch it.
And certainly, like, I feel like Best Picture, like, that's the award everyone's looking forward to.
Exactly, that's the big one. I was like, what's going to win? Yeah.
And so, like, honestly, when the Best Picture winner came on, I'm like, okay, well, I guess it's over.
I did too. I was like, did I miss Best Actor somehow? What happened?
And it just became a thing where, like, I don't think having this idea of, like, a twist ending or whatever just didn't really work out. I feel like for me, it's like the ratings probably went down right after that. It's like, okay, well, I don't care.
Some people turned it off because they thought it was over, and that, whatever. Yeah.
And he had said that another thing he had brought up was, this is a question in the Los Angeles Times. In hindsight, would you rethink the decision not to allow Zoom for anyone who couldn't make it to the production sites? And he just said no. So, you know what? I'm gonna be that person. I'm gonna say it. Zoom would not have been any worse than what happened in the last few minutes.
I agree with you. 100%. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, the extraordinary circumstances called for extraordinary creative responses to them. So it's not like, well, people were just lazy, they didn't want to get on a plane. I think under this circumstance, yes. And Anthony Hopkins, I think everybody would have liked to have seen Anthony Hopkins on Zoom making a speech.
Yeah, and they could have also done this thing where they could have, Judy Garland, actually, when she was giving birth in the 1950s, like, she was nominated for A Star Is Born, 1954, and it's such a great performance. Yeah. And one of the things was that they expected her to win so much that they even sent a camera crew to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I even thought, you know what? In hindsight, they could have paid someone full amount of everything to have them go to Anthony Hopkins' house.
Yeah.
And record an acceptance if he won.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been a really neat idea, but I mean, if they could do it in 1954, I have no reason to believe that they couldn't do it
2021,
now.
Hello. Yeah.
And one of the things they said was, and another thing he brought up was the fact that he didn't read any reviews this year. He said, I wasn't aware that people didn't like the lack of clips or montages. And he said that this was an opportunity, in his opinion, that we're going to go ahead and try different things. If certain things work, they work. If things don't work, they don't work. Because he said that, he is right. The Academy Awards should change things up a bit, but I think he isn't right in taking it I think, for me at least, I think so things, I believe personally that they should have done a period of 5 years of trying out new things, where 1 year they don't have the clips, or 1 year they do it cinematically, or 1 year they switch it up. I don't think it was a good idea to put all these different risks
changes altogether.
It was, in my opinion, a bad idea, because for me it's like the next year, like, look, I tune in because I watch movies, but I feel like eventually my generation will be less and less inclined to want to tune into the Academy Awards. And in my opinion, another thing they did wrong was they didn't offer up a good streaming option. That to me was a really bad way of doing it, because I mean, during the pandemic, people lost their jobs. Why are they going to pay for cable just for the Academy Awards if they couldn't even pay money to go to the movies?
Yeah.
But I wanted to get your thoughts on some of these answers. You know, it's just...
well, I think that... I mean, I understand the urge to try something new, but I think most of it didn't work. I mean, I think you need to go back to having Best Picture as the last award. I think you should always have the clips. People want to see the clips, especially if you're someone like me who, I mean, there were a couple years where I was determined I'm going to go see at least every Best Picture nom. That was before they had 10 or 12 or whatever they have now. But when they had 5, I'm going to go see. But some people don't get a chance to see the movies, and they like seeing the clips because at least it gives them a flavor of the movie and the performance of the actor. I think you've got to have those back in. No,
I agree with you. And another that we mentioned last week, that I forgot to mention, was the Academy Awards got a lot of, I'm going to say crap for this, but they did not ever pay tribute to the theaters, the struggling theaters, just like how...
Yeah, they should have done something like that. Yeah.
Because the Grammys paid tribute to a lot of, like, local musicians, and the music industry that was suffering in general. They paid tribute to a lot of, like, record stores and all that stuff. But the Academy Awards, they did not pay tribute to the movie theaters. And I think, for me, that was horrible, because movie theaters, the Academy owes a lot to movie theaters, and they
absolutely, and they're struggling, yeah.
And the fact is, like, even our local theaters are having a hard time. And I go to a movie theater, and you know what? It is an optimistic sight when I went to the movies that it was almost filled up to capacity, because of course we still have to distance ourselves and all that. So, but I've also noticed that Warner Brothers, like, when I look at the box office, the first week when a new movie comes out, it's fine. It's okay for a pandemic, but then it dips right away, because it feels like nobody's really sure about going to the movie theaters right now. So, like, movie theaters really are having a hard time, and I feel bad because they kept getting teased. Like, Godzilla vs. Kong opened really well, but then the second week it dropped. And then Mortal Kombat opened up really well. I feel bad for movie theaters because they keep constantly being teased that, you know, these movies are going to make money for you,
and then they really don't.
No. And
yeah, they should have had a special thing. Have somebody, some big name at some small movie theater in the Midwest with a camera and a mic and just talking about thank you to all the movies. Something. Yeah.
And I also believe, like, I mean, I think the Academy should have also done this thing where they could have fundraised and do, like, a fund and have all these movie stars donate throughout the evening. Because, you know, for example, at the Harvey Milk Diversity Breakfast here in Palm Springs, they have this event, but they also have, it's a fundraiser within a fundraiser event to donate to the organization. So they could have done something like that, and it's kind of sad that it wasn't the case.
Yep, absolutely. Well, all right. Well, it was nice he did that interview, but we don't like his answers too much. Just saying.
We'll be right back on the Culture Corner in just a moment.